On vacation, but I'm Justin Clift. I am a little over 2 years in to working in real estate. I've been working as transaction coordinator on the Rogers Long team as well for about a year and a half. So I am able to earn a little bit of a salary being transaction coordinator, while also I'm still able to entertain clients and sell a little bit of real estate on the side as well. So it's a really cool opportunity. I'm extremely humbled to be a part of Hometown Realty. I've been treated so well since I've been here, and I think you all probably have had the same experience. I want to welcome some newer folks we have today, I believe from the Mosley Flint classes. Raise your hand. Are you here? Yeah, welcome. I know Mike, I think, took y'all out to lunch today, and I hope your journey is successful, and get out there and start meeting people and bringing buyers and sellers to the table so you can make some money, right? Yeah. Quick background on me. I worked about 16 years in professional baseball. I was fortunate to spend 7 years in the front office of the Atlanta Braves. I was stationed in Florida as their operations coordinator. I ran the day-to-day at the complex. I was the only one, the physical therapist and I were the only one stationed in Florida year-round. So I've got an extremely process-oriented type mind, and I try to stay as organized as possible. Working in that field keeps you on your toes for sure, and being as organized as you can be really puts you ahead of the game, and I think that's what's allowed me to be successful in what I do here. I remember some time ago, Todd Rogers had a superstar sit-down meeting here, and he said, if you really want to learn a business, do the bookkeeping. And that's exactly what I do. In the short time I've been doing this, I've learned so much because I see every contract that comes in. I go on most appointments with my teammates. So the learning has just been incredible in such a quick amount of time. So I encourage you all to please get involved in any way that you can. Keep coming to these classes, go on inspections, hang out with the transaction coordinator, practice, writing contracts. It will really help you in the end here. Let's see a hand count. Do we have any transaction coordinators here today? Wonderful. Hey, welcome. A little disclaimer here. I don't claim to know it all. We have a process that we think works for us. So please feel free to join in, jump in. If I screw something up or you disagree, just please jump up and let me know. But thanks for coming. Thanks for what you do. We do have a lot of great assistants and TCs here at Hometown that do a heck of a job. Who's on a team here? Team? A lot of team people. So you got some folks that help you out. How about some solo agents? Doing it on your own there. We'll help you get through it today. And I know we've got some newer folks. How many people are here just for the gift card? It's okay. At least you're honest. Thank you. Thanks for being here. We've had a lot of classes, prospecting, okay? The open house, getting your database together, everything that kind of give you the groundwork to get going. Cindy runs a great contract writing class, and now we've gotten to a point where we have a ratified contract, and we might get paid, right? But we still have a few days here where we need to get to the closing table. Hey, welcome. Here's a packet of information here. No worries. So there's a process that will help you stay organized, especially with the way you communicate with the other side, so that you and your clients can get to the closing table and you can get paid, right? So first of all, on the packet, the first page I have here is a screenshot of transaction desk on the templates page, okay? So if you look on the top half of the page, you've got your seller's templates, and on the bottom part of the page, you have templates for buyers. Now, Hometown has done a great job. I think Logan handles this. There's already Hometown listing and Hometown buyers templates in transaction desk. of most of the forms all the forms that you could potentially need when you're representing a buyer or representing a seller, okay? But what I've found is there are a lot of forms in there that we're not gonna use. So what you see here are the templates that I've set up for our team to make it as easy as possible on us to write up a contract, okay? Let's start at the bottom there for buyers. If you look on the far left, I've squared and starred the icon that you click on to set up your templates. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can go in there and whatever forms you use the most, you can go ahead and customize your templates so that when you go to write up a contract, which Cindy has showed us how to do, when we're in the MLS and you look at the listing and the picture, and right below the pictures there's that little TD icon to start a transaction and use this wizard. That's how you get it going, and it will take you right into your templates for the forms that you'll need to write up a contract. So just reviewing those real quick, everybody needs to have a hometown info sheet that you'll fill out. I'll show you that there in a second, that goes with every file, okay? That's all of the contacts and your splits and commissions and everything on that sheet. I've got the as-is addendum in there, okay? Sometimes we'll use that, sometimes we won't, depending on what kind of deal we're writing up. And I won't go too deep into what these forms are. There's some other classes that'll do that for us. But I am always here. That's the same thing with hometown. If you ever have any questions, I've never heard of anyone getting turned away for help. The people here are more than willing to tell you what these things are and help you get along. Just bring those buyers and sellers in, right? We've got the 305 there, which is our buyer brokerage agreement, which is a required form with the contracts. Also, we have the standard purchase agreement there. We've got our summary of rights, which is a 426, which is a required document with every transaction. And then I've also put in there the escalation clause. We're typically using that a lot these days in competitive situations. So these are the forms my team is going to use most often. I hand wrote the notice of business relationship down there. That is a required form that everyone should use. Ours just isn't there. I've got my team's in a different place because we have a kind of a different form there. And the same thing up above with the sellers. Those are all the standard forms that we're going to use when we're representing a seller. We're putting together a listing agreement. So the goal here is to build what I call a ratified file. All right, so we're now under contract. We've got that ratified file, and I'm going to turn it into my TC, or in this case me, and I'm going to take a look at it. The first thing I do is I go through it to make sure that I have a complete file, because the last thing I want to do is to send this ratified file out the other side where I'm missing maybe the lead paint, or someone forgot to initial somewhere, because if I turn it in, it's going to end up coming back to me anyway. So it's good to get it done first, right the first time, so we don't have to do it again, and I'm not chasing down paperwork. So my ratified file also not only contains the purchase agreement and all these forms, but it's topped off with a printout of the listing, okay, from Matrix. We want to see a copy of that printed listing, and of course, the cherry on top at the very end is the info sheet. I'm just turning that into Hometown Realty. I don't send that out to the world. I don't think it's everybody's business what our splits are and that kind of stuff. So make sure that when I turn in the file to my office coordinator, I've got my info sheet followed by a copy of the listing. If it's off market and I don't have a copy of the listing, a copy of the tax records, and then all of the necessary forms to go along with the purchase agreement. And really, it's really important to me too to have everything into one PDF. Okay, I don't like seeing when another agent sends me 5, 6, 7 different files to open up. It's very easy to put everything into one document. If you don't know how to do that, have someone show you. So please just keep everything in one place. It makes life easy on everybody. Any questions so far from anybody at all? Anything? Wonderful. In good shape. Good shape. Well, next page is our hometown info sheet. Okay. The thing I can recommend here is just having it filled out completely. You may not have all the information you need right when we go under contract. You may not know the attorney or the settlement agent on the other side quite yet. But you're going to turn this sheet in on average 2 times. Okay, so if you're representing a buyer, I'm going to turn it in to my office coordinator here. It's Betsy. I'm going to turn this form into Betsy, and I'm going to check pending up there at the top because I'm under contract. It's pending, and I'm going to fill in all the information that I have at the time that it's pending. And this way, your office coordinator is going to be able to start to build the file on their end so they can get it over to the broker and they can properly make sure everything is in place. If you, once you get to closing, okay, you're going to go ahead and turn in a closed info sheet after it's closed. And at that time, it should be completely filled out because we've known everybody the whole time. This is what's going to go on in file so that you can get paid. You're not going to get paid unless this is filled out properly. So that's very important that you do so here. I have an example here of a closed info sheet on a deal that I did. It was a listing, and what you can see at the top is a lot of information there. The address and whatnot automatically gets populated from MLS. So the more of the contacts and stuff that you can fill in to MLS and the wizard, the easier it'll be to get these sheets filled out. I've got my commission up there. In this case, I took a 5.5%. It's a client, a repeat client for me, an investor, so she's got a little deal with us. But of course, I'm offering the buying side a 3%, which is our hometown policy. Make sure you're doing the best you can there to offer a 3%. I don't think we can get away from that unless you have permission from your broker. So there's the, I've gone ahead and done the math at 2.5%. I did not get 100% of this deal. I'm on a team, but I didn't want everyone else to see how it gets all cut up. But your volume is going to be half of what your, it's just going to be half if you're working on your own, because you get 50% and then the other side gets 50% of that volume. So that's how that math works. So if you're on a team and you happen to be getting 30% of the deal, your volume will be 15%. So that's just an easy way to calculate volume, is just to cut it in half. Okay, and then of course I fill in the information there on the for my seller and my buyer. The bottom, you've got your attorney information. Just make sure this stuff is completely filled out. Referral stuff, if you got referred a deal from an agent outside the company, fill that bottom half in, and it's good to have a referral agreement as well. Any of your office coordinators can help you there. If it's a hometown agent, you can fill in just as if they were like a teammate of yours and get their split taken out first. So that's the hometown info sheet. Is there any questions on this? Anybody ever have any problems filling this out or anything at all? That's great. I know it's kind of simple, but I just thought I'd hit that because it's an important form there so you can get paid, right? The next form we have here, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. That's the next thing I'm going to do after I have a ratified file, is fill out that information sheet. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my database and I am going to fill out the summary of contract form. I'm on this one right here, okay? And this is all the information for the transaction for me, okay? This is how I keep track of all the deals. I've got 8 other team members who are doing a lot of business, and it's important that I keep this stuff organized because I'm going to forget a lot of it, and when I go to reference it back, it's all right here. So of course, I put the address of the property up there and our sales price. If there's any concessions whatsoever, any money up front that's coming from the seller, sometimes that number will increase when we're in the middle of the deal because something came up in inspection and we're offering a concession. So I always have that up there. Any warranty, we don't see a lot of warranties anymore, but I want to make sure that's on there so we know. So when I look at the closing disclosure towards the end of the deal, I know those numbers match the closing disclosure. I've got my seller's information in there, and an attorney and paralegal who's representing us. Fill in the buyer's information. And of course, I do provide the phone number and the email because my settlement company is going to also be reaching out to the client. So I want to make sure they have their contact information. And of course, the lender and the closing attorney, all the contact information for the transaction so I can keep track of it. And then below is a real important part, something that gets filled in from the start of ratification all the way to the end. This is a constantly changing transactional update portion. So of course I always get updates from the lender most of the time. As you all know, sometimes some lenders are harder to communicate with others. I've had lenders disappear, and you have to really dig in and figure out what the heck is going on. But anytime I get an update from the lender, I stick it into the loan status. So if it's processing, underwriting, the goal here is to get to the C to C, which is clear to close, and I know that we're in real good shape when I get that. HOA docs, if it's in an HOA, which can be a little painful, right? Getting those documents sometimes, especially now that the rules have changed a little bit and they'd have to have that certificate, and we're asking for the clients to pay for them up front. So I want to know if it's in an HOA, especially if I'm a listing agent and I'm getting those HOA docs out to the buyer, and they've got 72 hours to review them. I'm making sure I note when I get those out to the other side, because their clock starts, and that's that get out of jail free card, because we all know that in an HOA, if we look up there and you're not allowed to have park your RV in the driveway and turn someone off, they can completely get out of the contract. So it's important to keep track of that timeline. The WDI, okay, wood destroying insect inspection, which is a requirement here in the state of Virginia, of course, unless your loan doesn't require it. But most of the time you are getting a wood destroying insect inspection, and I just make sure I order that as soon as possible. It's ordered within 30 days of closing, and I just keep track of the timeline there. Of course, you can see here we had our WDI on 5/24, and we had a little fungus down there, and we got that treated, so I just made notes of that. Title insurance policy, we oftentimes want to try to get the title insurance policy from the sellers, because if they can track that back, the new buyer can often get a discount with their new policy. So always try to reach out to the other side, especially if the sellers have previously used that same title company. The title company might have it on file, and it really is helpful to get a hold of that to save your buyer some money. Rent back, we do see a lot of rent backs these days. I always keep track of that. I mark my calendar for when the rent back is ending. That means that the sellers are staying in their home up to a certain time past closing. And I want to keep track of that because there's a security deposit involved. And I want to make sure that at the time the rent back expires, that when the buyers make satisfactory possession, we're able to get in there and get that security deposit released back to the seller. And so not only do I mark my calendar, but I send a calendar invite to my teammates so we can keep track of that and make sure everyone's on the same page with taking proper possession. With the utility reminder, that's another important thing that we like to do with our clients. With about 15 days out or so, I have it in my calendar that I'm going to reach out to the client and remind them that closing time's coming up, and that the utilities are going to need to be transferred. Okay, so if I'm a seller, I need to know that I want to get the utilities out of my name, and I also want to make sure I'm reminding my folks, my sellers, to inform their homeowners insurance people that I've sold my home, so that they can go ahead and get that policy taken off. That's sometimes they're not reminded of that by their homeowners folks. I mean, I think they may not even know they're selling their home. And I've heard instances where they're continuing to pay for something. So make sure you remind your sellers to let their homeowners insurance know that they've sold the home. And with buyers, I'm going to remind them to get in touch with the utility companies to get the utilities properly set up so that they don't lapse. The last thing we want to do is for the sellers to end utilities and for the buyer to actually have to restart them. There's extra fees and extra pain with that. So time those up with the buyers and sellers, to be a better agent to your clients. And we have a little packet, a little PDF that we send out to remind. It's called a moving guide that kind of has all the Dominion Energy and trash folks and all sorts of utility providers on there to help guide our folks. Appraisal status, it's another important part of the transaction. The lender's going to order our appraisal, and we're constantly staying on top of that, especially when we're overpaying for things and that appraisal may come in short. We're going to need to get to a point where we might have some other negotiations. So keeping track and checking in on the appraisal is important. Warranty, again, that's a timeline there. If we, it's not really a timeline, but if the warranty's in play, it's another portion of my update. Inspection, if we're having an inspection, of course, I'm just notating there what kind it is, if who it is, what time it is, that kind of thing. Just constant reminders here that I can reference. If it's on well septic, that's something we really want to order quickly. As you all probably know, well septic folks, there are not tons of them, and usually they're very busy. And if you want to get a well septic done closer to closing time, they may charge you extra. So try to if it's on well septic, get that thing ordered sooner than later so you can get those folks on the calendar. If I get a call, I use C&E Mechanical certified septic. I know a lot of us do. If I get a phone call from Lewis Timberlake, who's a great inspector with them, I know we're gonna probably have an issue. Right, Kevin? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you don't want to see that call come through. Well, septic can be painful if people don't take care of it. So encourage your folks and encourage yourselves to just please make sure you have your septic pumped every so often and make sure that's good to go. You'll see the deed there. If I represent the seller, we're going to have the seller go into the lawyer's office and sign their deed. And I always keep track of that appointment time there as we get closer to closing. Title, I want to make sure title's coming back. A lot of times I don't hear unless there's a problem, but the buyer's side is going to order that title up, that title search, and it's just one more checkbox there we want to make sure we're staying on top of. And of course, I always have a date there for the closing disclosure, which is the debits and credits of every transaction. By law, that's supposed to come out 3 days prior to closing, and I always make sure that that comes out on that right time, because I'm going to review it. We're going to review it to make sure our commissions are correct. We're going to make sure that if our well septic is coming out of closing, our termite inspection, if we have an oil tank that we need to prorate, things like that, just making sure the accounting is proper so that everyone gets paid. So that's kind of the summary of that form that we use, and I provided it to you just in case you want to create something on your own there to help keep yourself organized, okay? Any questions on that? Yes, Mara?
So do you just keep this and update it for your own reference, or do you send it out, how does that work?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that process here in a second. I do use this to show everyone that I'm communicating with as well through email, so they can also keep track of it, because sometimes they'll see something that might be blank there and it might remind them, oh, I haven't ordered the termite inspection. And so I'll show you how I build up on that. So that's just really the second thing after the info sheet I fill out, I'm gonna fill this out on my end right when I get a ratified file to get things going. The next step for me, turn the page, is I connect all parties in the transaction, okay? So you can see my email template at the top half of the page is if I'm representing the seller. In the bottom half of the page, that's my email template if I'm representing a buyer. And this is what I'm going to send to the agent, both agents. I'm sending this to both sides of attorneys, settlement companies. I'm throwing the lender in here. I'm throwing transaction coordinators in here. And anybody else that anyone wants communicated with during the transaction, I'm going to put into this first email that I'm sending out, and I call it the summary of contract email, which is going to include my ratified file as an attachment. Of course, that's what I'm saying in the first sentence, is attached as the ratified file for this deal. I put in bold there that I'd like everyone to please keep me posted. I know that there are a lot of agents out there that are great with texts, and there's some that are great with phone calls, some that are great with email, some that are a lot that aren't great with email. And that's what I'm here to do. You know, I know I've got some agents on my team that may not look at their emails as often because they're out entertaining clients and they're doing that, and it's just not a thing they do. But as long as I see it in an email and it's important, I can reach out to the agent and say, hey, did you see that email from so-and-so? It looks like it might be important. So it's important that please keep me looped in, because it's gonna make everyone's life easier. And then you'll see, you know, a particular note on there. If I'm missing a piece of information at that time, you know, if I'm representing the seller, I can tell from the contract who the buyers are using for settlement, because it's in the contract, but I may not have their contact information. So I'm asking the agent there to please provide me that contact information. You know, sometimes I may not have a phone number to a lender, and I really would like that information in case I do have to reach out. So that's the portion of the template there where I can you know, ask specific questions up front of things that I may need. And of course, I'm always asking them if there's anyone else you'd like to me to include in communication, because communication's key. You know, we want to make sure we're communicating, especially early on, so that we can all get to the closing table and get paid, right? And then the buyer one down below, of course, I ask them if they have a copy of their title insurance policy, so that I can try to save my buyer a little bit of money when they go to get their title insurance policy. So that's just my initial transaction coordinator template email that I include in the body of email that I'm initially sending out. And then right below that, Mara, I put the transaction summary from the previous page. And I'm going to include that same transaction summary page every time I send out an update. I'm going to include that, and it's going to be changing throughout the transaction. Anytime I get new information, I update my spreadsheet, and it just helps keep everything organized. So then the next step that I'm doing as I'm getting this file out is I'm going to communicate with the client and with the attorney, okay? So we use MG Law on the Rogers Long team, and so this is the email that I am going to send out to the clients, the agent, and then our attorney and his paralegal. Just introducing them to the attorney, and letting them know the attorney will be reaching out with the buyer engagement letter where they're seeking some information. If it's a seller, they're going to want to know their mortgage payoff and all that good stuff. If it's a buyer, they're going to send out an engagement letter that talks about title insurance policy, talks about a survey. You know, sometimes folks may want a survey on their home in case they're going to be putting up a fence, or they may be close to their neighbors and there might be a shed or something too close, and you kind of want to really know where your lines are. The attorneys are going to send that information out to our buyers or sellers to get that information, and I just really want the clients to know at that time too that I am trying to get to the closing table as smoothly as possible. I'm always here if anybody needs anything. Just another piece of communication here, and of course I'm attaching that ratified file to this email as well, so the client has a copy of their contract. Any questions, anything overwhelming to anyone? Am I confusing anyone? I know for newer folks this might be a lot. I mean, I do it on a daily basis, and hopefully, you know, some of you younger folks to the business will end up getting to a point where this is just second nature to you. The final page that I have here is just a screenshot of my Microsoft Excel with all of my tabs there. Towards the bottom, you'll see blank Littleton Boulevard, Mary Mundy Lane, Noble Avenue. Each of those tabs contains that summary of contract email, and they're all in order by close date. And so on my team, on every Tuesday or Wednesday, sometime between Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm going through every single tab here and looking at what might be missing, looking at how the transaction is going, and I send out what we call transaction coordinator pipeline updates. So I know it can be redundant to some people. I know I've gotten some nasty emails back from some lawyers saying, "Oh, we're six weeks out. What are you expecting? You know, what kind of update do you need?" And really, the reason we do that every single week is to let everyone know that we're here and that we're communicating. You may not have an update. That's just fine. You can delete it. You can file it. But it has caught some folks sometimes where it's reminding them, "Oh, you know, I forgot to order that termite inspection and we need to get that done," or, you know, I have not given these folks a loan update, and I need to do so. So really, it's just about, you know, communicating on a weekly basis, and then what you'll see, you know, between on the kind of the blank area, you'll see seller utility sheet right there off to the side. I use that blank area in each tab, and that's where I'll make notes throughout the transaction. So if it's on like a Thursday and, you know, we're not closing for another 3 weeks, but hey, I got the termite report back, you know, usually I don't just immediately send out the termite report. I know that I'm gonna send it out on my update day, a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and I put myself a little reminder there to make sure you include everyone in the termite report. Or if, you know, all of a sudden, you know, some people might take a little bit longer to get into their files, and you know, the lawyers all of a sudden reached out and said, "Hey, please include so-and-so on all emails." I'll make a note there. You know, on the next Tuesday, I'm going to, you know, make a note there in the body of the email to say, "Hey, looping in so-and-so from this company," and, you know, just constantly taking the information that I've notated there, building it into the body of the email, and just keeping people updated, just keeping things organized so that we can get to the closing table. I mean, I remember not too long ago, it might have been on a Buffini training thing, where they said, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 90%, last year, 90% of real estate deals that did not close after ratification were because of, excuse me, agent incompetency. Okay, so, you know, it's very, Eric, did you do something wrong? So, it's important that if you don't know something, don't pretend to know it. You know, ask someone, especially when it comes to inspection stuff. You know, that can be really an interesting part of a deal. You could make or break it, because at the end of the day, if you don't come to, you know, proper terms with the inspection, if you don't have an agreement with the other side, they can essentially, you know, walk away. You lose the deal. You may lose a client from it. So just make sure you're staying on top of things. And of course, if this is something that doesn't work for you, I encourage you to, you know, hire an assistant. You know, join a team that might be able to help keep all this stuff organized for you. So that's pretty much the contract to close as it relates to the transaction coordinator role. Of course, after we close, I'm gonna take a sip of water here. Of course, after we close, there's a process that we have, and that we want to reach back out to the client and try to get a testimonial from them. I do have a template for that, where I'm just simply reaching out and saying how excited I am for them for closing. Our relationship doesn't have to stop ending. Please, if you don't mind, send us a testimonial. Go to these sites and leave us a testimonial, because even though we work by relationship, a lot of people are doing some background work, and we want them to be able to go on there and see that they had a great experience. And if by chance I'm not reaching someone by email, I'm always picking up the phone. So a lot of times I'm calling lenders that I haven't heard from in a couple weeks and saying, hey, is everything okay? I just don't want any surprises. So just staying ahead of the curve, making sure I'm constantly communicating, I'm staying organized with everything. That's really the goal there. Questions, comments, concerns, anything, suggestions, anything at all from anyone? Like what questions do you have? Did I miss something? I guess I've done a decent job getting it through here. Everyone just wants to get the $50 gift card, right? Okay. Kevin, did I miss anything?
No,
Everybody good?
Great. And I think what's the, in a transaction, what's the biggest kind of pain or hurdle, or from a transaction coordinator standpoint? Is it, communication? Is it getting stuff done on time? I mean, what's the biggest issue you typically run into?
Yeah, it is. It's the communication portion. Sometimes you have some folks that might just turn the contract into the lawyers, and they're gone. They're done. You're not going to hear from them again, which is totally fine. They may have some great assistants that are helping them and whatnot. But the thing that I can't stand is when I've asked for some information and I just don't hear back. You call, you leave a voicemail, you just don't hear back, and you're just it's very frustrating when you constantly follow up. I mean, I think in a little over a year I've been doing transaction coordinator stuff. I think we've had 3 lenders that have just totally disappeared. I mean, one where the deal didn't even get done because of this lender was out in the middle of nowhere, and maybe didn't even exist. Shame on us in a way, for not doing our due diligence early on to see if they really existed or not. But that's it. Just the communication portion, and that's why we do this. That's why we do this. Is there's just a lot more things that have to be done once we have ratification, and so communication. Yes, Larry.
So probably for the benefit of like your newer agents, so and tell me if I'm hearing you right, there are going to be chances where you're not going to get quick answers to the questions that you have and the things that you need. You're going to have to make multiple attempts, and regardless of how the person on the other side is acting, you're still going to have to act in a way that can get the information you need. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, but you just reminded me of a situation where I couldn't find HOA docs. I knew who the HOA person was. It was a smaller HOA. It wasn't one of the ones like Community Archives or HomeWise or whatever it is that you go to and get the docs. And so I pulled up tax records and I had their address, and I was about to go knock on their door and just let them know I'm a real estate agent. I would just really need these documents. If I don't get these documents, we're probably not going to be able to close. It didn't come to that. They finally got back to me. But that's another painful portion sometimes. Transaction coordinators, is tracking down some of these smaller HOAs can be very painful. But that's why you started early. Get going early and getting the communication going and getting the things you need, so that it buys you some time to put out some fires if you need to. Yeah. Yes, ma'am, you had a question?
I just wanted to go over, cause, some of my transactions were a little bit difficult. Can you talk about maybe some other addendums that may have to be attached to the, contract that we, or they may not know about?
Yeah, sure. You know, when it comes to inspections, you know, I think it's known out there, we don't like to share, inspection stuff with lenders. So I know that I'm not really, when it comes to, an addendum that we're putting together, for a repair or for a credit, I am also, going to attach a separate addendum 100. An addendum 100 is just a blank addendum where you can put anything on there you want, that is changing some of the terms in the contract. And, basically, if there's, if you're having an inspection and you've got the inspection, addendum, there's one for repairs and credits. And, you know, the top half is the repairs where you go through and you explain it, and then you say in there, you know, that you're gonna fix this, or, you know, in lieu of repairs, you're gonna get this credit. We're not wanting the lender, to see, that there's, anything wrong with the home that they're about to help you purchase. So what I'm going to do is I'm also gonna get that addendum 100 filled out that just states that the, seller concessions increases from $0 to $5,000. All other terms of the deal remain the same. And that's the portion that I'll send to the lender, letting them know that, hey, there's gonna be, you know, an additional $5,000, you know, going towards, closing costs or prepaid or whatever it may be. You know, so that's another like addendum that will come up, during the process. Of course, you have your possession by seller, which is the rent back, agreement. You know, I don't have that on as a template, but that's usually something that you'll attach to your initial purchase agreement, which is just essentially saying that the seller is going to remain in the home up to a certain amount of days. Usually it's, most lenders, cut that off at 60 days. You can't have a rent back more than 60 days, and they're gonna do it for a certain fee, and that's just another form, that, you know, you fill in there, if there's a rent back, in place. It's, the technical term for a rent back is possession by seller. You may have a bill of sale, in there too, throughout the process. You know, if your buyers go through a home and they're like, oh my gosh, I really love that Chase Lounge there, and I really wanna have it. Let's see if the sellers will sell it to us, and you get a separate bill of sale out, and fill that out for, you know, that piece of property that's not attached to the home. Does that answer your question? Is that what you were talking about? Yeah?
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
sometimes we look at the paperwork and we think it's just this, but then people don't know about the other addendums that may come up.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, you know, that front page are the standard templates that we have for our team. Those are the forms we're gonna use most of the time. There's a designated agency form that I don't have in there. So, you know, if you ever, are doing a deal with another hometown agent, you have to provide that designated agency form, just letting both sides know that hometown is on both sides of it, and that, you know, I'm representing the seller, and, you know, Kevin's representing the buyer. So all you gotta do is go in and just add the form, you know, that you need. If you know, if the home was built after 1978 and I don't need that lead paint, I mean, it's there, I'm just not gonna fill it out, and I'm not gonna throw it into the signings when it comes time. So it's real easy just to omit them, and it's real easy to add forms to your templates so that you can stay as organized as possible. What else? Anybody else? Anything? Anything at all? What time? Yes?
Justin, what's one thing that we as agents can do to make like our transaction coordinators' lives easier? Because you guys have a lot going on.
Yeah, just, I really appreciate the ratified file at the start. You know, I know sometimes, you know, I might be missing a buyer rep, or I might be missing the summary of rights for some odd reason. Sometimes, you know, you all are in a hurry sometimes to meet the deadlines and get, you know, an offer out to the other side. But as you know, if you have your paperwork together at the start, that makes my life really easy. I mean, I had access to all of my team's files, so, you know, I know that, you know, Mara probably got the 305 buyer brokerage agreement signed. She just didn't have it in the file because she didn't feel it was necessary to send it in her offer. But I know I can go in and find it and include it in my ratified file. So just having everything together is a big thing. And communicating, you know, a lot of times lenders totally ignore my little sentence there that says, please include me in everything. And, you know, I'm calling the lender and asking them, hey, you know, what's going on? I haven't gotten an update. Oh, well, I've been communicating with Kevin. Well, you know, maybe I haven't seen Kevin in 2 days. And that's just the way that goes sometimes. So just communicating with me and letting me know. What else? Anybody? Anything? Yes, Cindy.
I would just mention, if you're an agent that is not on a team and doesn't have a transaction coordinator, in your Infinity training manual, there are sections called contract flows, and there's some nice little kind of summary checklist in there. So I would reference those so that you at least know the steps of all the different things you're responsible for. If you're on a team, you love having someone fill in all those little steps for you, but that is a reference for you if you are not on a team.
Yeah, most definitely. And you'll see that checklist in the hometown templates that are provided for you. And you will unfortunately get one of those checklists back from your broker with something circled if it's missing. So don't think, you know, because you don't have a summary of rights in your file, then it's not going to come back to you. Your broker will find that and put an error message in there and send it to the office coordinator, who will grab you and tell you you need this particular form. So, what else? Anything?
Justin, I'll just follow up on that,
Yeah.
just so y'all know, we don't, as managers, sit there just loving to write these little notes. But we do look at every file, and things do come up, sometimes way later. Problems, legal issues can come up between the clients, so it's not even really our issue. But we've been recently getting lots of legal activity where there's something going on that doesn't involve us, but they need our documents, they need our files. So it is critical that your files are complete, and that's why we as managers, some of you are like, do I really need that form? Yes, you know, it might come up 6 months from now that somebody has an issue, so it is important. Every form has a reason, it's not just paper, there's a legal something or other behind that form that is just very important to have your paperwork straight.
Yeah.
And doing it the first time saves everybody.
You're right. And you remind me of something else that happened last year. I was on my way to a cruise, and you know, when you have a listing, you also, you know, have to fill out these agreements and put them into a ratified file and turn them into the office. And it was an email from Rodney and my broker saying that, you know, we've been audited, and that you know, CBR wanted a copy of the listing agreement and all that stuff, because maybe, I think sometimes people might throw a listing up and they don't fill out the paperwork and turn it into the office. So make sure if you have a listing, you're filling out the paperwork and getting it turned into the office, because you could get audited and you don't want to get a fat fine or anything like that from CBR for not having your paperwork in. So, anything else? Anybody? Anything at all?